interview me. So Barbara, if you will come up here, we'll interview you. Barbara has just, where have you just come back from, Barbara?
I've been in Australia for a week, but before that I was in India.
You were in India?
Yes.
What part of India?
I was in Fazuka, and Fazuka is 10 kilometers from the Pakistan border.
Okay, I've never been there. I grew up in the northeast part of India and in Calcutta. What did you like most about India?
Oh, where I was, foreigners don't often go. You see, a lady and her husband saw me on YouTube. They're Hindus, and they asked me to come to India and teach them, which I did. And I loved Fazuka because it was fairly primitive. And so I would say 80% of the women were wearing saris and 80% of the men were in their traditional clothes. And whenever I walked down the street, everything stopped. I don't think they see many foreigners.
Okay, so it was quite an experience for you.
It was.
An eye-opener. So what part of Australia are you from?
I'm from the east coast of Australia. I'm exactly halfway between Brisbane and Sydney.
I see. And what do you do there, Barbara?
My husband and I have a health retreat, and our health retreat is on 450 acres, and we're in the bush. I don't think you call it bush here. Is that right? You call it woods. Yeah,
We call it the sticks.
Oh, yeah, we're in the sticks, and we have a lot of gum trees. Now, just inside the coast of Australia, there's the Great Dividing Range. Have you heard of the Great Dividing Range? Mm-hmm. It's called the Great Dividing Range because it divides the coastal from the internal, which is desert. Now, it's not just over the ranges desert. You know what I mean? It gets a little bit more sparser and sparser. So we're in lush green, really.
And how long have you had this Christian business?
Michael and my husband and I have been running health retreats for 19 years. We've been married for 20 years.
Wow. And you met your husband in a church?
I met my husband at homeschool camps. He had homeschool children and I had homeschool children. You see, he had 2 and I had 6. And we were both single parents for a while. And then my daughter went up to work at his health retreat. And so I went up after a while. And after a year, he asked me to marry him.
You didn't have any problem with that, I'm sure.
I didn't.
So you have how many children between you?
8.
8 children.
Yes.
Well, that is very, very...
So when we married, they were 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 19, 20. And now they are 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 36, 40, 42, something like that.
You've got a tremendous memory over here, right? Praise the Lord.
And we have 18 grandchildren.
Amen. Well, Barbara, you are going to speak to us tonight for about 30 minutes, and then you're going to give us about 15 20 minutes to ask questions and have your answers for us, right?
That's right.
That's what you like best, questions and answers, correct? All right, and so with that, do we have any special music tonight, Ruben? No. Okay, so we're going to turn over the time to Barbara tonight and have your questions ready, and she's ready to answer them at the end. Thank you so much for coming. We welcome you.
Thank you. The title of my meeting tonight is God's Way of Healing. You see, God never meant mankind to be sick. Some people say, why have I got cancer? Why would God do this to me? Do you know, God never does that. He never does that. You see, He designed the human body with an incredible ability to heal itself. Now, we know it'll heal itself because if we cut ourselves, it heals, as long as we give it the right conditions. And aha, there it is. Did you hear that? Our cut will heal if you give it the right conditions. Many are sick through ignorance. And this is why in page 127 of the Ministry of Healing, the author Ellen White, she says, the only hope of better things is the education of people in the right principles. Let the physicians teach the people that restorative power lies not in drugs, but in nature. And did you know Revelation talks about drugs? If you do a Bible study concordance on sorcery in the New Testament, especially in Revelation, and you'll get to chapter 18, verse 23, and it's talking about Babylon's fallen, and then it says, and her merchants were the great men of the earth, who deceived all nations by her sorceries. And if you go to the concordance, it comes from the word pharmakia. Does that ring a bell with you? Pharmacies. So the great men of the earth, and what's the most wealthiest company in the whole world is the pharmaceutical company. Their profits go into billions every year. Her merchants were the great men of the earth who deceived all nations by her sorceries, by her pharmakias, by her drugs. You see what page 127 says? That the physicians teach the people that restorative power lies not in drugs, but in nature. Every doctor knows he cannot heal you. He can set your bone, but he cannot heal it. He can do things in the setting that will bring about healing. And a friend of mine gave birth to a baby with a cleft palate. Oh, what a wonderful thing the surgeon did. And the surgeon did surgery to pull that together. Oh, you would hardly know today. Surgery has come a long way. But that physician knows he could not heal that. He can stitch it. He can get it in the right position. He knows that it is the body that heals. Do you know, I sat on a plane one day with an orthopedic surgeon. And the reason I got to talk to him, he had a very interesting book about cellular nutrition. And I said, that looks like an interesting book. And he looked at me and he said, who are you? I said, I'm Barbara O'Neill, and who are you? He said, no, I'm Dr. Kennedy, and I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I said, oh, well, I'm Barbara O'Neill, and I'm a nutritionist. And he went, oh. And we got talking. It was very interesting. He said, most of the surgeries we do are unnecessary. He said, I was trained in Oxford. I'm a teacher. I teach the surgeons. But he said, we've got to pay the bills. He said, I just did a total knee replacement on a 180-kilo woman. What would that be? That'd be up to nearly 400 pounds. He said, I don't know how her knees will ever heal. But he said, it's my job. It's my job. I said, well, if ever I have an injury, I'll come and see you. He said, I won't see you. I said to him, I teach people how to look after their bodies so they don't have to get to you. He said, good. Isn't that interesting? He said, I only operate the necessary, but he said, I know that most surgeons, they do operate when it is unnecessary. And do you know what's unfortunate? A lot of people go wanting that operation. I was talking to a man recently. He said, I was told to have an operation to fix a joint. He said, I'm sitting next to the man in hospital who had a similar operation, and the man said to me, I was told I'd be out of pain. I'm in more pain now. Now, there may be a time when a bone needs to be set. But notice what the Spirit of Prophecy says in page 127 of the Ministry of Healing. The only hope of better things is the education of the people in right principles. I gave a lecture this morning show how women need never have prolapses. I gave a meeting this morning showing how women need not be incontinent, but you go to aged care, 80% of the women are. Whose fault is it? And for the prolapse, the doctor will put mesh in, and the mesh doesn't work, and they're suing because the mesh didn't work. But whose fault is it? Do you know it's ours? Because what was the commission we were given? We were given the commission to go out and teach. And the devil knows, and I will cover this Friday night, the devil knows that the only way he can pull you down is through what? Your body. Your body. And if he can pull that body down, does that affect the mind? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So the only hope of better things is the education of people in the right principles. Do we know the right principles? Yes, we've got the best medical book in the world. It's called the Bible. And I'm sure we all know it well, we sure all know it by heart, Romans 12, 1-2, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God. How? By the mercies of God. All we have, all we are, is from God. I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present, have you ever read it? Your bodies, your what? Your bodies living sacrifices. When I learnt the age of the man who just presented me, I was shocked. This man is a living example of what we should be in our latter years of life. And I can tell you right now, it is not genetics and it is not accident. I haven't talked to this man about his health practices, but I don't have to because I see it. Can you see that? Present your bodies living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. What is it? Reasonable. And the next verse tells you why. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove who to everyone you have contact with, that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Who to? Well, Hebrews 12 tells us. That was Romans 12. Let's go to Hebrews 12, verse 1, where it says, wherefore, seeing we are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. Who are they? Your family. What has been said, if you're a Christian in your home, you can be a Christian anywhere. It shocks me when I see the way some families speak to each other. I go, oh dear. Oh no, don't say that. And they'll be having words with each other. And the phone will ring and they'll go, hello. Does that mean they like the person more on the phone than the person they're living with? A cloud of witnesses, our family, our neighbours, our children. Do your children see through you like glass? It's not what you say, it's what you do. Your relatives, your workmates, the people you see in the shop once a week. Let's go further. Let's go outside the planet. The whole world is watching because the devil points at you and says they can never do it. Isn't that what he said to Job? Seeing then that we are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and run with patience the race set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. If he's the author, he started it. If he's the finisher, he's in the middle too, because that's how he finishes it. The author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the Father. Wherefore consider him, who endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be weary and faint in your mind. And we all get a little bit weary and faint in our mind, yes? Aren't you glad he didn't get weary and faint in his mind? Or we'd all be lost. If you think it's too hard, look at the cross. In Ministry of Healing, Ellen White says, if ever Paul got discouraged, one glance at the cross. You think you're having it tough? One glance at the cross, and he was revived. Therefore consider him, who endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be weary and faint in your mind. For you have not yet resisted under blood, striving against sin. Because it was that sin that put our Saviour on that cross. Can you see what the cross can do for us? I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies living sacrifices. No wonder in page 347 of Christ Objects Lesson it says, transgression of physical law is transgression of the moral law. Not my word. Transgression of physical law is transgression of the moral law, for God is truly the author of the physical law as he is of the moral law. He has written his law with his own finger on every nerve, every muscle, every faculty with which we have been entrusted. And every misuse of any part of our organism is a violation of that law. Does that mean if I have a late night? Does that mean if I'm dehydrated? Does that mean if I'm not exercising? Surely not, Sister O'Neill. transgression of physical law is transgression of the moral law. And sin is the transgression of the law. All should become intelligent as to the human frame. Isn't that what our students this week are becoming? All should become intelligent as to the human frame and how to keep it in the condition necessary to do the work of the Lord. Every home should have an anatomy and a physiology book. Yeah? Read a little bit every day. When you've read your Bible, then read a paragraph of your anatomy and physiology book. Learn about your bones. Learn about your muscles. I've had people say, oh, my tummy's sore. Your tummy's not down there. Your tummy's up here. We should know where our kidneys are, our liver. We should know how they work. Proverbs 14 verse 6 states, knowledge is easy to him that understand. When you understand how your body works, you automatically have the knowledge on how to treat it. All should become intelligent as to the human frame. We should know something about the house we're living in, yeah? When I was 17, it was time to get my learner's license. My father said to me, there's my brother, me, then 3 girls. And he said to me, before you get your license, you must learn how an engine works. I said, Dad, none of my girlfriends had to learn how an engine works. Well, I actually didn't say it like that. I never talked to my father like that. I basically went, really? He said, we'll have lessons every night. So I sat there and I learned about pistons going up and down and spark plugs going off and all that sort of stuff. But doesn't it make sense? Can you see Dad's theory? If you're going to drive a car, you need to know something about it. And I had to learn how to change a tyre. Do you know if I ever have a flat tyre now, it doesn't happen much. But I've learned another way. I just stand by the car and go, And a man always stops. And I'm happy to do the cooking and the cleaning and the washing. But I just find it hard to lift that wheel off. The men have the strength. We should know something about the house that we're living in. All should become intelligent as to the human frame and how to keep it in the condition necessary to do the work of the Lord. The relation that exists between the physical organism and the spiritual life is one of the most important branches of education. And I'd like to add, the most neglected. How our physical organism affects our spiritual life. This is the last sentence of page 347 of the Christ Objects lesson. Every person should have a knowledge of these nature's remedial agencies. Sorry, I flipped to another quote then. The last one is, the physical organism, here it is, the physical organism should be carefully preserved and developed. Got those 2 things? Preservation. There's your 8 laws of health, yeah? Preservation. Keep it well hydrated. Keep it well nourished. That's not enough. And developed. How do we develop? We get out there every morning and we're running up hills. Can't run up hills? Exercise bike. That's a little bit hard. Rebounder. Swimming? No, the lake's too cold. You've got to find something. We're training for something more important than the Olympic Games, am I right? Go and have a look at their training program. Have a look at it. What does the Bible say in 1 Corinthians, I think it is 9:25? Know ye not that they that run in a race run all, and one receives the prize? Therefore so run that ye may receive. Every man that strives for the mastery is temperate all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, we an incorruptible. I therefore so run, but not as uncertainly. So fight I, but not as one that beats the air. I keep under my body. Did you hear that? I bring it into subjection. I don't want to go to bed. You're going. I don't want to drink my water. Drink. Sometimes on your morning walk, you might have to go like that. Where there's a will, there's a way. I keep under my body. I bring it into subjection. if by any means when I have preached to others, I myself might be a castaway. All should become intelligent as to this human frame. The human body needs to be carefully preserved and developed. Are you developing your mind? Every day we should learn something new. Every single day. So there's physical development and there's mental development. There's physical preservation and mental preservation. Physical and mental preservation, not enough, and development. And listen for this last bit of the sentence. It tells you why. The human frame needs to be carefully preserved and developed that through humanity, the divine nature might be revealed in all of its fullness. Did you hear that? And you know, the best sermon that you may preach is what? Your life. How you live. That has the most effect. Let's go back to page 127 of the Ministry of Healing. Let the physicians teach the people that restorative power lies not in drugs, but in nature. Disease is an effort of nature. What was that? An effort of nature to free the system from conditions that arise because of a violation of the laws of health. And that body might be releasing things right now. Our lifestyle guests might have experienced a few releases. It's releasing things through the lungs, through the skin. And when you go to the bathroom, if it smells bad, rejoice. Where was it before it came out? If someone says, Barbara, I'm coughing up green, I say, fantastic. Fantastic. Where was it before you coughed it out? Can you see that? Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that arise because of a violation of the laws of health. All should become intelligent as to how to keep the human frame in the condition necessary to do the work of the Lord. Pure air, sunshine, abstemishness, rest, exercise, use of water, proper diet, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. Did you hear that? Now, Psalm 104, verse 14, the Bible says God gave herbs for the service of man. The hawthorn berry can strengthen the heart. The couch grass can strengthen the kidneys. The dandelion and the St. Mary's thistle can strengthen the liver, but they cannot do their job if you are not doing those true remedies. You see that? In fact, the dandelion, the couch grass, the celery, the parsley, excellent kidney herbs, but if you're dehydrated, they can't do much. You see, they're the true remedies. They're the true remedies. All should become intelligent as to this human frame. It is essential both to understand the principles involved in the treatment of the sick and have a practical training to enable one rightly to use this knowledge. You see, nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual, and to the impatient it seems slow. I memorized that when I did a skydive and didn't land quite right and was on crutches for 7 weeks. Every day I'd say to myself, nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual, and to the impatient it seems slow. We want to be better tomorrow, don't we? I get emails, Barbara, I've got alopecia. If I come to your health retreat in a week, will I be healed? I write back and say, no. But I can teach you how to heal. You see, we've been spoilt from a young age. You know, when something goes wrong, get a drug, take all the symptoms away. And how many people today see the dangers of the drugs, see that they are the sorceries deceiving the nation, so they go over to the herbs. So instead of stopping the drug, they'll take the herbal tablet. But they're not drinking water. They're not exercising. It's the body and the body only that can heal. And it will heal if you give it the right conditions. Nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual. and to the impatient it seems slow. If on this detox all the body's waste were to come out, all the built-up environmental poisons, we would have no guest left alive. The body lets it go little by little by little so that you can stay alive in the process. Nature's process of building, healing and upbuilding is gradual, and to the impatient it seems slow. The surrender of hurtful indulgences requires sacrifice. The surrender of staying up on Facebook, computer, till midnight requires sacrifice. Do you know that's a bigger addiction now than any drug? Is the games, is the Facebook. Did you know that between the hours of 9 p.m. and 2 a.m., the healing powers in the body are accelerated? Our brain and our body is recharged. There's not many people that are in bed by 9 today, are they? Transgression of physical law is transgression of the moral law. One lady said, well, I can try for 11. I said, good. And the student says, no, Barbara, it's 10. Oh, it's 9. I said, yes, but this lady was midnight and she's going to 11. She's getting there. Can you see that? Well, I'll start drinking 2 glasses a day. I said, good. And the student says, no, Barbara, it's 8. I said, yes, but this lady's drinking 1. She's going to 2. Praise God. Can you see that? What is the character of God? Moses said, I beseech you, therefore, show me your glory. And the Lord passed by before him and proclaimed, the Lord God, merciful, gracious, long-suffering, abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity, transgression and sin. Mercy. Okay? So I say to the young student, mercy. Mercy. Gracious. And at the end of the week, the 70-year-old lady said, I'm drinking a quart a day. And I cheered, and the student said, no, Barbara, it's 2 quarts. She's supposed to have 2 quarts. She came here drinking 1 glass. A quart is wonderful. She's getting there. Can you see that? And isn't God gracious with us? Oh, doesn't he take time with us? Let us take time with each other. The surrender of hurtful indulgences requires sacrifice. But in the end, it will be found that nature untrammeled does her work wisely and well. Those who persevere in obedience to her laws will reap the benefit in health of body and health of mind. There are 2 paragraphs in page 127 of the Ministry of Healing. That's all we need. If we had nothing else, that's all we need. Nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual, and to the impatient it seems slow. Let me give you some Bible verses for that. So we go to Galatians 6, verse 7. And it says, be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that he shall also reap. There's Newton's 3rd law of motion. To every action there is an equal and an opposite reaction. But let's come down to verse 9. It says, let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we will reap if we faint not. So I often give that verse to people. And then there's another one, and it's in Hebrews 10:35, and it says, cast not away therefore thy confidence, in the which is great recompense of reward, for ye have need of patience, in that after ye have done the will of God, you might receive the promise. What is the will of God? That we be in health, yes? Cast not away, therefore, thy confidence in the great God of heaven, in the body he created. Cast not away, therefore, thy confidence, in the which is great recompense of reward. Got that? Great reward. But ye have need of patience. See the advice? God knew. God knew. It's like my little girl Emma, well, she's 42 today. She came to me at the age of 4 and said, Mum, I'm going to grow up in a minute. Isn't that what we want? We want to be well in a minute. But ye have need of patience, in that after you have done the will of God, you might receive the promise. For yet a little while, and he that will come shall come. The just shall live by faith. But if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. But we are not of them that draw back unto perdition, but in them who believe in the saving of the soul. I told you it's the best medical book that we have. Isn't that true? The Bible has the answers. The spirit of prophecy, as a friend of mine says, packs it out. It goes a little bit further to show us that we live in a body, that when it is given the right conditions, it will heal. We just need to give it those conditions, and we are not in ignorance as to those conditions. So whether a person have no money at all, they can drink water. They can exercise. Is that right? They can eat nourishing food. Fruit and vegetables are the cheapest foods. Is that right? Oh, maybe they're not as cheap as 2-minute noodles, but almost. And God gave us intelligence to know that those 2-minute noodles, He did not make. They didn't have them in the Garden of Eden. Everyone can go to bed early. But Sister Barbara, I can't get to bed before midnight. I said, start. You see, our body has memory and we have habits. And on Saturday morning, I'll be showing how we can rewire our brain. If you're unable to come to the Saturday morning lecture because you're not a lifestyle student, it certainly is up on YouTube, how you can rewire the brain. But remember, be patient with yourself. Did you take those verses? Cast not away, therefore, thy confidence in the which is great recompense of reward. As a baby grows, so we heal. And that's not quick, isn't it? I see my little granddaughter, Esther, she's 15 months old. If I was with her every day, I would not see her growing, would I? But I can only see her every few months. Oh, and then I see the change. So be patient. Make a diary. Write what's happening right now. Write out how much you're drinking. Write what time you're going to bed. Because I believe everyone should be their own doctor. Because only you know how you feel. Only you know what you've been through. If I've got a sore finger and I say to you, feel my sore finger, can you? No, only you know. So make a diary. Part of being your own doctor is documenting your case. And sometimes healing happens so slowly you'd hardly catch it. But if you're making a diary, you can go back and you can say, oh, well, look at that. I met a lady that I hadn't seen for 20 years. She said, Barbara, do you still get that liver pain? I said, liver pain? She said, yes, you used to get liver pain. I said, praise be to God. I'd even forgotten. Unfortunately, I didn't become a Christian until I was 25, and I had marijuana and alcohol and things like that, so I guess that's why I had the liver pain back then. But little by little, your body grows. I'd like to open the floor now to questions. If you have any questions, let us hear them, because if you have a question, it's quite possible that others have the question. There is a roving mic, so we'll give you the mic so that all can hear.
Thank you. Good night. I've often heard of the concept of eating in order of digestion, and the idea behind it is that you receive a better digestive experience by eating like your fruits before your meal or your raw vegetables before your meal.
That's a very good question. As I studied digestion, do you know what happens when your food goes in the stomach? It all goes round and round churning like a washing machine. But it is a good idea to start with the raw food because it is more cleansing. Some say we should eat a lot of raw food because of the enzymes in it. Enzymes? What are these enzymes? Food has vitamins. It has minerals in it. It is your stomach's enzymes that break your food down. One writer said, we need to eat raw food because it'll just about digest itself. So I said, well, why isn't it digesting itself as it sits on the plate? Can you see my reasoning? And it is enzymes in the mouth, stomach, and duodenum that digest our food. Now, raw food contains things that cooked doesn't. And cooked releases things that raw doesn't. So myself, I like to eat about 50 cooked, 50 raw. If I went on an all raw diet, if I turned sideways, you probably wouldn't see me. And I know my energy levels would go. But if a person was 400 pound, they'd probably do well to go on a raw diet for a week. Can you see it? That's why you're the doctor. You need to adjust it per person. There are no two the same. It is a good idea to eat your raw first because it freshens and the live, all the vitamins that are in the food are stimulating your digestive juices. But when you eat protein in the first few mouthfuls of food, it stimulates the release of gastrin, which actually stimulates more hydrochloric acid. So you see, you shouldn't leave your protein till the last. You know what I do? I have a few mouthfuls of raw, then I start bringing the others in. And on a very cold morning, you need a bit of warm food in your stomach. One lady said, we eat our fruit, then 30 minutes later we eat the rest of the food because we heard that if you don't, it'll ferment. I said, you eat the rest of your food 30 minutes later, do you know the fruit's still all in there? No, we should eat all our food together. And we should chew it very well because when you chew it well, the brain's getting messages. Oh, there's a bit of protein there. Oh, there's a bit of starch there. Oh, there's some healthy fats there. And then he sends messages down to the gallbladder. Bit of fat coming, bit of protein coming, get ready. When you eat too fast, chomp, chomp, swallow, the organs are saying, what's coming? And the brain says, I don't know. They're eating too fast. My husband does everything fast, and I keep slowing him down with his food. Slow down. So when I say, slow down, he goes, oh. He tries very hard, but he does everything fast. If you chew too fast, then the food doesn't get broken down properly, and the more you chew it, the larger the surface area. So can you see your brain and your organs are all working together in digestion? If someone rings for me in the middle of my meal, I say, I'm sorry, I'm busy. Because it's a very important time of the day. As a rule, I only eat 2 meals a day. Very important time of the day. In fact, Ellen White says, cast off care and anxious thought when you sit to dine. And our health retreat, if I come into the kitchen and I see staff eating, standing up, I go, ah! And they go, oh, yes, sit down. They're not allowed to walk around and eat. You've got to sit. If you're busy, finish your job, then sit and eat. Remember that comment, cast off care and anxious thought when you sit to dine. And she also says we should show respect to the delicate organs of digestion. You had a question? I saw it, yes?
Thanks for taking my question. Do you integrate frequency-specific microcurrents, food-grade hydrogen peroxide, and colloidal silver into your healing modality? And if you do, how do you do that?
I don't use hydrogen peroxide. Sometimes we use a little colloidal silver. Did you know that they used colloidal silver before antibiotics were discovered? Because what colloidal silver does is it inhibits the oxygen uptake of one-cell organisms, so they basically suffocate. If someone has a yeast problem, if someone has a bacterial problem, we probably use more olive leaf extract and grapefruit seed extract. Colloidal silver deteriorates very quickly. If you've got a colloidal silver machine, it certainly can be used, and I know people have had benefit from that. As I spoke about on Monday and I spoke about in my lectures, these microbes have the ability to adapt and adjust. And so what I suggest, say if someone's conquering yeast, 2 weeks on this, 2 weeks on that, maybe 2 weeks on olive leaf, maybe 2 weeks on colloidal silver. So you actually alternate the medications. So they may be used for a specific problem, but I don't use them on a daily in the daily program. I don't take them myself. I don't give them to the guests unless I see there may be a need. Is there another question?
The first part was frequency-specific microcurrents, like a Rife machine, frequency machine, those kinds of things.
A Rife machine, we do not use a Rife machine. I am familiar with Royal Raymond Rife, and I'm familiar with the potency of the frequency which he was able to kill cancer. I am also familiar that the pharmaceutical heads that be destroyed his microscope, and this is the pharmaceuticals coming in. Now, I do know that there is a couple of doctors in Australia, in Perth. Perth seems like the other side of the world for us in Australia. It's right over the other side. And they did a current affair show on these doctors that were using the Rife machine. Basically, what Royal Raymond Rife discovered, that a certain frequency killed microbes, or killed the anaerobic microbes, the harmful microbes, the cancer microbes. So these two doctors are using that. And I had two guests that came to me that had been there. It cost $10,000 for 1 week, and every day they went and had the frequency machine put on them. Their cancer went, but because they had no education on how to prevent disease, the cancer came back. So they came to me. One lady heard about what cancer is and how you can conquer it naturally, and she is still alive today. The other lady that came to me, the cancer was so advanced, unfortunately, she only lived another few months. So I go back to page 7 of the Ministry of Healing, is the 8 laws of health are the true remedies. Another question?
Questions about protein. If we are not getting it sufficient protein, how does that affect the digestion as far as stomach pain and digestion? Would there be pain, and that's caused from insufficient enzymes or?
Pain in the stomach can be insufficient enzymes, and many people today suffer from low hydrochloric acid. I have never met anyone with too much hydrochloric acid. A lot of people are diagnosed with too much hydrochloric acid because it comes up and causes reflux. That's not the acid, that's the gateway. And the gate, you see, it should be acid. If someone says, I've got a very acid stomach, I say, fantastic. It must be acid to break your protein down. And what that acid does is it snips the protein bonds into little pieces. So how can you restore hydrochloric acid? But what would deplete it? Stress. When people are worried and stressed, that blocks your hydrochloric acid production. Drinking with meals, isn't that an American habit? Waters down the hydrochloric acid. Eating all day long depletes hydrochloric acid. Having the main meal at the end of the day. Poor old stomach should be sleeping with everything else, but it has to keep working. That depletes hydrochloric acid. So how can we restore hydrochloric acid? Eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, and tea like a pauper. Drink your water between meals. Sit to eat in a comfortable, happy, relaxed environment. And take 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper in about 1/3 of a glass of water just before the meal. Cayenne pepper will wake anything up. There's a book called Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss. Have you heard of it? He devotes half a page to every herb except cayenne pepper, 10 pages to cayenne pepper. He quotes 2 doctors. One doctor said it's impossible to overdo it. Another doctor says it'll never cause a lesion. There can be confusion. Black pepper irritates, chili pepper irritates, cayenne pepper heals. In fact, cayenne pepper will heal a stomach ulcer. And so that will wake it up. Now, a dear lady that I met and spent time with named Dr. Agatha Thrash. Dr. Agatha Thrash spoke against cayenne pepper, and she was using the Spirit of Prophecy quote that says we should not have stimulants or spices, yeah? Well, cayenne pepper is a blood stimulant, not a nervous system stimulant, and the life of the flesh is in the blood. Anything that stimulates blood is stimulating healing. Can you see that? I have great respect for the work that Agatha Thrash did, but she was not a herbalist. She has done a great work, and I never ever want to take away from that. Yes?
Applesauce, is that okay?
You can take it in applesauce. Some people take it in capsules. I like taking it in mouth. You get used to it. It'll tingle for a bit. But when you take it in your mouth, it's already going into your blood. And I had a lady one day have a heart attack in front of me. Well, it wasn't in front of me. I got the call. Barbara, a lady's having a heart attack in the middle of the cooking class. I ran down. She was half conscious. She was pale. No pulse. Well, hardly any pulse. There was a man taking a pulse. He said, it's nearly gone. I said, quick, cayenne pepper. I got the cayenne pepper. I just shoved it straight in her mouth. I don't know whereabouts in her mouth it went. Just got it in. And then we gave her a bit of water. She was half conscious. Within 2 minutes, the man taking her pulse said, the pulse is strong. She sat up and said, what happened? We said, was your mouth hot? She said, I didn't notice. We sold out of cayenne pepper that program. It's a remarkable herb, remarkable. You had a question?
Yeah, I just was wondering your take on organic apple cider vinegar. I know there's medicinal purposes, but there's a lot now for other purposes.
I don't use internally apple cider vinegar because lemon juice can do all that apple cider vinegar can do. Some people, but it'll break down my enamel on my teeth. I said, well, drink your lemon water through a straw and then you'll bypass the teeth. I do know in the spirit of prophecy, she puts a caution against apple cider vinegar or cider vinegar. She also quotes Jesus where they put the vinegar to his mouth on the sponge and he refused it. I do know in some circles they claim that apple cider or vinegar can interfere with digestion. I do know it's one step short from alcohol. Can you see that I'm treading the road of caution where I go to the lemon juice? Now, apple cider vinegar is very good on someone that's got athlete's foot or or tinea, to pour it on their toes. So we use it externally. Yes?
Back to the cayenne pepper. Is it true that, like, if your heart rate is too high or too low, the cayenne pepper would normalize either way?
Well, what will normalize it more powerfully is the hawthorn berry, because the hawthorn berry directly affects the heart. But let me tell you what the cayenne does. Why did that lady come out of her heart attack? What happens is that as soon as the cayenne pepper's in the mouth, it's in the blood. Did you know that it takes 1 minute for one drop of blood to go around your whole body? So when it went into the blood, it thinned the blood, it opened the capillaries and got a dramatic delivery of blood through the body. Now, there is a book called Curing with Cayenne by Sam Beiser. Sam Beiser is a medical journalist, and you can get that as an ebook. And the whole book is about the amazing cayenne pepper. And he says if you want to increase the potency of any other herb, put it with cayenne pepper. And Curing with Cayenne by Sam Beiser. Now, he says that the cayenne pepper can even rebuild heart muscle. You see, it brings the blood, and the blood's the healer. Sure, for daily use. I have about half a teaspoon every morning. But if you cook it, you can change it. You're best to put it in raw.
If I do cayenne straight, it's like an emetic. I mean, it down, up. I can't.
So if
take
it does that to you, don't take it. Or start very small. Yes?
Yeah, regarding wheat, it seems that you kind of don't want to do anything with wheat. And I don't remember the reason, if you can explain again. And also regarding carbohydrates, seems that you don't like much carbohydrates when supposedly carbohydrates are supposed to be the main source of energy.
It's a misconception. And my liver lecture explains very carefully. And I will be discussing wheat in the next 2 days. But if you get the book Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis, he shows what they've done to our wheat. And I'm not referring to the wheat that God made. God made it good, man has changed it. Our time is almost up, so is there another? Yeah.
Vet, and they like to put me on medication. I fought it for 2 years. But I noticed that some foods, and I'm wondering whether some of the things you mentioned, like vinegar and peppers, and when I'm eating out at other places, and sometimes it can be quite stressful.
Yes, that certainly can do it. You see, your cardiac muscle is the muscle at the top of the stomach. And that's the muscle where the esophagus goes into the stomach. And that cardiac sphincter, it's called the cardiac sphincter because of its relationship to the heart. And it basically is two muscles, there's two layers of it. And when it's relaxed, it's closed. When it tightens, it opens. So the best muscle relaxant,
Does stress affect that?
if you're stressed, it can open, but the best muscle relaxant is magnesium. So taking magnesium at night, taking magnesium before each meal, even 500 milligrams, ideally of the magnesium citrate, it will relax and close that muscle. We had a man who'd been on medication for reflux for 15 years. Do you know what my comment on that is? Is it working? 15 years? And if the body can heal itself, so all a person needs to do is to eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, tea like a pauper, to take magnesium before each meal. And you are right, some of those...
It only hits me sometimes when I'm eating out or go to somebody
okay, so
else.
maybe when you eat out, you take it before you go and you have a little dose in your pocket because that will close that muscle. And yet most physicians will give you antacids. Taking antacids is like shooting all the horses because they're getting out of the gateway. Just shut the gate. Yes?
If you have a situation with toenail or fingernail fungus, is that something from internal or is that external? And what can you do to
Everything
cure?
external comes from internal. And so toenail fungus, I have written a book called Self-Heal by Design. It's in the bookshop now. It's a small book because I don't like waffle. It's straight to the point and it shows you how you can conquer fungus in the body. But grapefruit seed extract, putting 1 drop of grapefruit seed extract on a fungus toenail, you might find it'll eat it away to the point where it'll fall off, but then a nice new toenail will come through, and it mightn't even fall off. It depends. But meanwhile, internally, you're conquering it. I had a man send me a photograph of his big toe, and it was actually a fax, and the toe was this big. And he wanted me to have a good look at his new nail. Perfect. And he'd had a fungus toenail for years. Pardon? 1 drop. No, no. Pure. On the toenail. Yes?
Are you familiar with a Dr. Gaston Nassiens? He talks about the somatoscope. Ellen White said that drugs change the form of nature of disease,
Yeah.
and he's speaking about organisms that he can see with this microscope. It's in between the Rife microscope and the others, but I've actually wrote him, and I've got information from him, and I've seen the videos. It's on the YouTube.
Yes.
So.
Do you know who also speaks of that, the microbes changing under different conditions, is Dr. Robert Young. Dr. Robert Young is an American doctor. He wrote a book, Sick and Tired. Excellent book on the changing of the microbes under different conditions. Now, we better make this is the last question because of our time constraints. Is there one more?
Yes, I have a question. Are gas and bloating signs of an imbalanced colon?
Gas and bloating can be a sign of low hydrochloric acid because the food's not getting broken down properly. It also can be a sign of an imbalance in the flora in the colon. It can be also a sign of eating too fast. It can also be a sign of eating a food that you have an allergy to. You see, the two most common symptoms of a wheat intolerance is brain fog and bloating. And the first page of the second chapter in the book Temperance, Ellen White says that Satan will change the wheat. There's other fruit she talks about, but she specifies wheat. So that's the first page of the second chapter in the book Temperance. Yes, yes, they've done some terrible things to that wheat. One man wrote to me and he said, Barbara, what you're saying is wrong. Jesus was the bread of life. I wrote back and I said, Jesus is the bread of life. But the bread when Jesus was alive is not the bread of today. You can get, if you can get the original wheat, which is Enkhorn, and you can get Enkhorn wheat in America, and you can get spelt, and you can get kamut. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more, if you go to my lecture on the acid alkaline, you can go to YouTube. You can, I talk about what they've done to the wheat.
Well, we thank you so much, Barbara. I'm sure you could go for another couple hours, couldn't you? With all the questions that all of us have. But
I need to be in bed by 9.
All right. If you have any special question, maybe she outside will be able to answer your question before she goes to bed at night. Since it is prayer meeting night, we would like to end with small groups of 2 or 3, praying that the Lord will help us to be more aware of the importance of our body temples, right? Looking good and feeling good is very important, but more especially because these bodies are the temples of God, and God dwells in us. This should be our main objective for taking care of these bodies. So let's divide up in groups of 2 or 3, and then when you're finished, if you will kindly, if you need to talk or converse with somebody, if you'll kindly do that outside so that we can keep a spirit of quietness and reverence in here while others are praying. Thank you so much for coming, and may God bless you. You all have a very special night tonight.